Then we have no public forum presentations. We come to deputations by appointment, but given the nature of the deputation by appointment, can I move that that item number 71 be received and considered at the council meeting today, item 71, and that it be considered immediately following the deputation. Would someone like to move that? David East, seconded Ben Livingston. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So I'll invite our deputation to come forward. Sorry, this one. Mark Munro on item 71.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for the invitation or the allowing us to speak today on a very, very important issue. On my right, I have Amanda Dewar from Lane Neve, and on my left, Tim Sintis, who's the Deputy Chairman of CCRU. It is history now that the coastal hazard policy was dropped in a joint agreement between Council and Government on September 28th. The Mayor advised in the press of the 29th she was pleased at the removal of the plan and that she had wished it had happened 12 months earlier. Unfortunately, against the spirit of the agreement as advised to us by the Government, the Tonkin and Taylor report and the resultant LIM notices remain. The Coastal Hazards Policy is the Tonkin and Taylor report. You can't have one without the other, and you can't repeal one without the other. The Tonkin and Taylor report was accepted by the Council by vote on the 3rd of July 2015 by nearly a unanimous vote. Councillor East was the only councillor in attendance to vote against it. Since this time, councillors have become aware that a report affecting billions of dollars worth of property has been widely panned. CCRU as a group is representing residents affected by this policy. We were told that we would need to allow between $300,000 and $500,000 to pay for the expert advice to challenge the Tonkin and Taylor report. How the $32,000 Tonkin and Taylor report is deemed sufficient to visit what has been described as a bureaucratic earthquake on an already struggling population is a major concern. In CCRU's opinion, the robust terms of reference required for a report affecting the lives of 13% of the city's population weren't robust at all. We understand that they involved a phone call from a senior council employee to the report writer, who subsequently advised council by letter the terms in which they would update the 1999 report, which was written on a best guess basis. Notwithstanding one of the world's biggest recorded earthquakes and the resulting major land movements, no updated land measurements from the 1999 report would be undertaken. Subsequently, the Arnold report, which was a robust critique of the Tonkin and Taylor report, stated that there were mathematical errors which have been confirmed by Tonkin and Taylor, who then claimed they had no effect on the report. Why make mathematical calculations that aren't relevant to the report? How many other calculations weren't relevant to the report? The report doesn't follow the 2010 coastal hazard legislation that was required to be written under. How do the leaders of this city exercise a moral authority if they pick and choose which legislation to follow? Council have acknowledged errors in hazard lines, and there are very strange anomaly in hazard lines at North Beach. There are many more deficiencies in the report which CCRU is happy to document if required. The Council Chief Executive, Dr. Edwards, dismissed Mr. Arnold's report on the basis it was pro bono, which respectfully CCRU doesn't believe is relevant. CCRU has also been made aware of disquiet amongst Council staff over the Tonkin and Taylor report. We came here today with the intention of supporting Councillor East's notice of motion to rescind the acceptance of the Tonkin and Taylor report. However, the very late inclusion of the supplementary paper on the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment report has changed that. We would support in principle a further peer review of the Tonkin and Taylor report, subject to the recommendations set out below. However, we still believe there are sound reasons to remove the Tonkin and Taylor report and any references to it and the resultant limb notices. The supplementary report on the PCE report advises the report is of a low significance in terms of funding and impact on the community. CCRU would strongly argue that the coastal hazard issue is significant. It has massive impacts on those people in hazard zones. It impacts the lives of people by, in many cases, fundamentally changing people's retirement plans, some at an age where they have no ability to adapt. Most people only own one property in their lives, and anything affecting its value can have catastrophic consequences. The coastal hazard policy affected 18,000 properties, which is around 47,000 people, close to 13% of the city's population. There is no way that anything to do with coastal hazards can be referred to as insignificant. Once the new district plan is in place, a new process will start on a coastal hazard policy. This will be challengeable, unlike the previous proposal. It is therefore important that the development of policy starts with major community consultation on the process to be followed. There has been widespread acceptance of Dr. Wright's recommendations, and with some better guidance from government, we have the chance for a policy that may not necessarily be welcomed by all, but hopefully can be accepted. If the report is found to contain inaccuracies and omissions as described in the Arnold report, will it be rejected and all references and limb notices emanating from the report be removed from individual properties? What is the time frame for these reports? We ask all councillors here today to forget politics, forget personalities. It's not about winning or losing, it's about doing what's right. CCRU was formed with the goal of challenging the coastal hazard policy. However, we haven't taken a position on the science of climate change. CCRU would expect the new policy to be based on sound science, with mitigation where possible and compensation discussed. The Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment in her report is recommending the government and local government work together to develop an agreed scientific-based framework that will allow the Christchurch City Council to carefully work with the residents to find an acceptable solution. The staff recommendation as set out here is essentially a modified version of the Council's previous controversial truncated go-it-alone policy to deal with the effects of climate change. The government recognised that the go-it-alone policy was not a success, and that is why it has substantially changed the process the Council was to use. The Environment Commissioner has recommended that would start carefully and with great consideration on a process for a national framework that would allow conditions to be accommodated. The choice is go it alone and be subjected to more controversy, or follow the Environment Commissioner's advice for a national conversation with the development of a framework that allows the Council to partner with central government. We can work in a careful, considered manner and achieve a consensus for a framework and process that is rigorously scientifically based and acceptable to our city's residents. With this in mind, we do not believe the proposed staff recommendations before you are appropriate given the government's recent actions and the Environment Commissioner's report, and ask that you consider the following. 1. The Council received the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's report, Preparing for New Zealand for Rising Seas, Certainty and Uncertainty. The Council provisionally, subject to a staff report, adopt the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's report, Preparing New Zealand for Rising Seas, Certainty and Uncertainty. The Council also include in any of the above work the effects of changes to the floodplains due to the effects of climate change. The Christchurch City Council formally submit to the Government that it adopt the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's report, Preparing New Zealand for Rising Seas, Certainty and Uncertainty, and that it work with the councils, district councils and territorial local authorities to prepare appropriate legislation. National policy statements and policy, etc., to action the recommended course of action outlined in the report. The Council work with other TLEs and the Environment Commissioner to ensure that any proposed legislation, national policy statements, policy recommendations, etc., to ensure the Christchurch City Council can work with residents to successfully resolve the problems that face the city in the next 100 years and beyond. The Council directs staff to reword the wording on limb notices to reflect the Council's actions as adopted by the above recommendations. The Council recognised the Tonkin and Taylor report was not meant to be directly used as a basis for RMA district plan review or policy, but that it may be useful after rigorous peer review and public consultation to inform the Council in its submissions and activities in dealing with the Government. And the Council invite CCRU to nominate 2 other experts to be part of the peer review team. CCRU legal advisors have input into the terms of reference for any such review, and we would expect that any consultants would acknowledge any conflict of interest with Tonkin and Taylor, and these would be taken into account before any engagements are confirmed. Just one final comment. In the Council staff recommendations on this report, there's no reference anywhere to community consultation, and I respectfully suggest that that lack of consultation has been the reason why we're here today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
How much time have we got left, please?
Taken about 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Questions,
So,
perhaps?
yeah. Well, Anish, I mean, we're going to go straight on to the paper after this. Would you like to say something, Tim?
Oh, I'm just saying that it's been a huge effect for the people on the east. I'm on the ground level, grassroots, you might say. It's caused so much uncertainty in people's lives in the east. I get continual phone calls from people who are having consent problems, particularly in new builds on blank sections. There seems to be like a big stalling effect. People lose interest. Some people who go to rebuild their houses see all this ahead of them and just say it's too hard, I'll take the cash offer. So we're losing people that normally would have perhaps built their house, rebuilt their house and stayed there. So you're breaking up a community with these rules. One other thing I will touch base on too, a lot of houses on the east, particularly in South Shore, South Brighton, are going up to 100,000 below GV. Nothing wrong with the houses, because buyers come along and say, it's a huge bargaining point, or you're in the coastal hazards. I'm interested in your place, but I'm going to make you a silly offer. We're hearing that all the time, and people don't have much choice if they want to move on. So that's actually the effect of this ruling. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, look, we'll move straight on to the paper now. So thank you very much for all of the effort that you've gone to. It's much appreciated. Right, could we have the